Do you use Fujifilm recipes on your camera a lot and find it limiting that you only have 7 to use at a given amount of time? Do you take advantage of the straight out of camera JPEGs coming out of your Fujifilm camera and don't want to spend a lot of time post-processing? Because I certainly do. And let's face it, the quality of these JPEGs coming out of your camera are so good that you can share them on your social media or share with your friends and family. I do that all the time. What if I told you there is a way where you can have unlimited amount of recipes readily available at your fingertips so that you could have 7 recipes for every single occasion that you want to photograph? For example, 7 recipes for a sunny day, 7 different recipes for an overcast day, 7 different recipes for portraits, 7 different recipes for street, you name it. I'm going to show you a software called Fujifilm X Raw Studio that takes advantage of your Fujifilm camera's sensor and lets you dial in the recipes directly into the software and store that in your computer that you can then import in your camera and assign to your 7 custom settings. By doing that, you will have a variety of recipes available at your fingertips for any occasion that you want to photograph. So let's jump right into it. The camera that I will be using in this video is my Fujifilm X106, but it should work with any other Fujifilm camera. This camera has X-Trans 5 sensor, so that is what the Fujifilm X Raw Studio will use. If your camera has an older sensor, make sure that your Fujifilm X Raw Studio version supports that camera sensor. So for example, maybe you wanted to download the latest one and that sensor might not be supported, but it's going to show you a warning that you want to get that particular version that supports your camera sensor. The first thing that you want to do is go into your menu and scroll down to where you see the network USB setting. And over here you will find this menu called connection mode. Make sure that it is set to USB raw converter backup restore, because this is what we will be using to connect your camera sensor to Fujifilm X Raw Studio, and that will let you dial in the recipe. So just like you dial in the recipe in your camera, we will be doing the same thing, but the only difference is we will be doing it with X Raw Studio in your computer, but not in your camera directly. The next thing that we would want to do is open your browser and just go to Google, type Fujifilm X Raw Studio. And what this will do is this will take you to the downloads page like this. And you got to click on the download button. And when you do that, then it's going to show you the different versions that are there. I'm going to take the latest version here because I'm using the latest sensor. So I'm going to click on I agree and click on the download button. That will download the file for you. Okay, so after downloading the file, you have to install the software. Once you're done installing, I want you to take the USB that came with your camera and connect that to the camera, and the other end will go into your computer. And what I want you to do is turn your camera on. So now your sensor is directly connected to Fujifilm X Raw Studio. And the next thing that you want to do is have a raw file. So this is very important. If you are trying to apply recipes, make sure that you have a raw file. If you have a JPEG, it's not going to apply recipes on that. You can shoot in RAW plus JPEG, but you always have to apply recipes on a raw file. So make sure that you have a raw file with what you're working on here. So once you connect the camera, you have to open Fujifilm X Raw Studio, and there will be a couple of things that it will show. Locate the raw file. So I'm in this folder and I have opened the raw file over here, as you can see. And on the left side, it shows you the details like your histogram, your camera model, what lens is it, and other details like shutter speed, aperture, ISO, exposure comp, your dynamic range, film simulation, or if you have applied any of these settings. And then in the middle is your image preview over here. And on the right side, you can see I have stored a bunch of recipes in the Fujifilm X Raw Studio, and this section shows you the recipes that are in your camera, the 7 custom recipes. And over here is where you dial in the settings, and that will apply to your raw file. So right now I don't have any recipe applied over here, and this is why these are the custom stock settings or default settings, if you may. And let's apply a recipe. So I'm gonna start with 1970s summer, and you can see that it's applying the recipe. If I like the look, then I can use this. If I don't, I can try another recipe. So I'm gonna try this 1976 Kodak. Now you'll see this warning if you are shooting in a dynamic range which is less than the recommended dynamic range of the recipe. So it might be using DR400, but I had DR100 here. That is why I get this warning. So you can just avoid that. Classic Cuban negative. This has been a very popular recipe lately. And I'm gonna leave a link for this recipe down below so you can check it out. And let's assume that I want to copy this recipe into my camera. So I'm gonna right click on it and click copy. And I'm going to choose which custom setting I want to apply this recipe to. So I'm gonna do custom 4, and there's Reggie's Portrait here. And that's going to replace that recipe and write Classic Cuban negative instead. So now you can see, once I save that, I have Classic Cuban negative imported into my camera. So it's very, very easy process. And now I have that recipe applied on this raw file. So now I'm going to show you how you can dial in your own recipe, or you found another recipe online that you would want to have or want to try out in the Fujifilm X Raw Studio. So what you're gonna do is go to Google and search for the recipe source. So in this case, Fuji X Weekly, which most of us love to use. And since my camera uses X-Trans 5 sensor, I'm gonna go to there. So I'm gonna look for recipes that are X-Trans 5. And I'm gonna scroll down and just pick a recipe that I want to try that I don't already have. So I'm gonna pick this one here. So I'm gonna go over here and scroll down, get the settings. And once I locate the settings, what I typically do is I take a screenshot and I open the screenshot on the side, and then open my Fujifilm X Raw Studio. And what I'll do, I'll just dial in these settings and apply that on the raw file. So first thing is film simulation is nostalgic neg. I'm gonna pick that. Then dynamic range is 400, but like I said, if you don't shoot in DR400, you can use DR100. That is okay. It's a personal preference. Grain effect is weak and large. So I'm gonna apply that setting here. Color chrome effect is strong. Color chrome FX blue is weak. And then I'm gonna dial in the white balance. So I'm gonna click on here. And since it's using a temperature value, I'm gonna choose color temperature. And I'm going to locate 5200 Kelvin. There it is. There we go. Then the next thing, I'm going to dial in the white balance shift. So it's going to be +2 for red and -2 for blue, which is right over there. Hit OK. Then highlight is -1.5. I'm going to choose that. Shadow is 0. There we go. Color is +4. Sharpness is +2. High ISO noise reduction is -4. That's where it's going to be. Clarity 0. And now there you have it. I have my recipe. So now I'm ready to save this. Now exposure compensation is recommended to be +2/3 to 1/3, but my photograph here is already sort of overexposed, so I might play with the exposure later. So I'm going to save this recipe in my Fujifilm X Raw Studio. And there it is. And now you can see I have saved this recipe in my Fujifilm X Raw Studio. And now I apply and I get the JPEG here, or the preview. Sorry, not the JPEG. And now I can dial in the exposure, underexpose it a little bit. And I feel like this is pretty good. So what I'm going to do is, if I click on convert, it's going to convert this into a straight out of camera JPEG with the recipe baked in. And I can also copy this back to my camera. And now let's say I want to replace classic Cuban negative, which I copied earlier, with this new one. I'm going to do this. And there you have it. So I have the new recipe back into my camera that I can use for this occasion. And finally, you can go to your Fujifilm XApp on your phone, click on Backup Restore, Backup Settings from the camera, and then type the name of the backup that you want to create, Here I am creating a backup for all my sunny day recipes, so it will back up the 7 custom recipes for sunny day, and click backup here, and it will create a backup for you on your phone. As you can see here, I have created 2 backups here. And finally, when you're done creating enough backups, you can go back on your X app, click on backup restore, and then find the backup that you want to restore on your camera, and then click restore, and then it will restore that back into your camera, so you will have all the new recipes back in your camera. So that's it, folks. This is how easy it is to dial in recipes in your computer by using your camera sensor and Fujifilm X Raw Studio, and have them available to you at your fingertips to have you covered for any given occasion in your photography journey. If you found this video useful, please consider liking and subscribing. Your support would mean so much to me. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments down below, and I would love to help you out. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.